Today I want to talk about how to pick the right Colombian city for you. So one of the things you want to look for when you're picking a city is like the infrastructure, public transportation, and how good all that stuff is. Medellin is the only city in Colombia that has a metro. In Bogota, it's really crowded and it's just a lot of buses. So you can still get everywhere you want, but it's a little more complicated. Here in Manizales, because it's a small city, we can just take the bus everywhere, and that's good enough to get you around. That's the advantage of living in a small city. Something to also keep in mind when you're picking a city is the vibe of a city. Medellin is very similar to Los Angeles. I would say Bogota is very similar to New York City. Here in Manizales, it's very similar to like a smaller city in the Midwest, probably like Omaha, Nebraska, something like that. And I would say Cartagena is extremely close to Las Vegas. I haven't been to Cali or Barranquilla yet, but I imagine the coastal cities are a little more similar to Cartagena. Something else important to keep in mind is like the population. For example, a lot of the black subscribers that have hit me up have told me that they have wanted to go to like Cartagena, Chocó, Cali, because the population there is a lot darker. The Paisa region usually is a lot more lighter. Colombia isn't necessarily racist or more classist. Most people want to be with their own people, especially when they're trying to find a partner. I recommend if you're looking to move here to slow travel through a bunch of cities. Spend like 5 days to a week in each place, because that's the only way that you really get to understand what kind of vibe the city has. I think there's this weird thing going on where every time you try to say anything negative about a Colombian city, whether it's justified or not, a lot of gringos get super offended by it, go up in arms, and that's why nobody wants to say anything negative about these places. But just like any other place in the world, there are some pros and cons, so you really need to experience it for yourself. Take the things that people say online with a grain of salt. People be exaggerating how good some of these cities are, and most people have not spent enough time here to really see all the ups and downs of everything. Hola, mami, ¿qué más?
Hola, ¿cómo amaneció? Yo conozco un chiquito como muy peligroso con una cámara.
Sí. Yep. Trash of the barrio, baby. ¿Y por qué son borrachos?
Porque son con base en cerveza. Cocinados en cerveza. Cocinados en cerveza.
Con el arroz y arroz.
En casa vive Jesús.
No señor. No señor. Something else to look at too is the price of the cities. Here in Manizales, it's a little more expensive to live, but it's a little cheaper than Medellin. Bogota is probably the most expensive. Bucaramanga, which is also really nice from what I've heard, is a little more expensive as well. Generally speaking, if you're a Westerner, if you come to any of these countries, it's still going to end up being cheaper anyways. However, I do feel like Medellin right now, the prices are definitely going up. You really want to try to find people that just fit your culture. I'm a more peaceful person and I'm pretty religious, so that's why Manizales was a good fit for me. I like to say that I didn't quite find Manizales, Manizales found me. Another important thing too is if you're trying to find someone you want to date, right? You just need to find somebody who fits you like energy-wise, you know? And for me, I was looking for a wife, so that's why Manizales was a really good place for me to find one. Cierto, amor?
Cierto.
Also, something important to keep in mind is like the weather. So if you like it a little more rainy, Manizales it rains a lot, it's a little colder. I would say the weather is pretty much like San Francisco, usually around the 60s, so you can always kind of wear a jacket. If you like the beach, you can go to Cartagena, but I have to say that Cartagena is extremely hot. Everybody talks about Medellin. Medellin, the weather's pretty nice. Pereira, it's a little more humid, but it's pretty similar to Medellin. And Bucaramanga también. I haven't been there yet, but I've heard it's pretty similar to Medellin. Something else I wanted to talk about is how much Spanish you know and how many tourists you want in the place. Right now, I would say the 3 best cities are Cartagena, Bogota, and Medellin if you know Spanish, but you're gonna get the most touristy experience. I think out of all of those, Medellin is probably the worst right now. Bogota is a little more expensive than Medellin, but it doesn't quite have the mal fama of the bad tourists that Medellin has. And Cartagena just experienced a lot of tourists from all over the world because of the beaches. So my personal recommendation is to go to like Bucaramanga, Manizales, Pereira, Armenia, the smaller cities, but that requires you to have a pretty solid level of Spanish already. But your experience is gonna be a lot better that way. Something else to keep in mind too is how available some things are. In Medellin, you have Jumbo, you have home center, you have pretty much everything that you need. But here in Manizales, some of the bigger stores you don't really find here. So we have to travel to Pereira, to the nearest bigger city, in order to get it. For me, it's not that big of a deal. I usually don't buy things from the big stores. Speak Spanish, so I understand how like the central area works. I don't mind going down there and negotiating. This is something to keep in mind too, which goes back to your level of Spanish. So I want to talk about religion for a little bit. Colombia is a Catholic country. In most of the smaller cities, the Catholic values are extremely strong. If you're not a religious person, that's okay, you know, I don't judge, but you're gonna find more people to hang out with in the bigger cities. Bogota, Medellin, and Cartagena, I would say, are less religious. But if you go to the smaller cities, especially here in Manizales, people are very religious. And that goes to if you're trying to find a partner. A lot of people are looking for women that have Christian values, but aren't Christian themselves. Let's talk about food. In Cartagena and the coast, you have a lot more fried stuff, and the coconut rice is extremely good. But here in the Paisa region, the food isn't super diverse, and most of the people that come here aren't huge fans of it. I personally like it because I'm a huge fan of the soup. You know, you kind of get used to it after a while. Once you eat at the mom and pop shops, you realize it's really healthy for you. But I can understand why people say they're not a huge fan of the food here. If you want the best food in Colombia, you're gonna have to check out Bogota and Medellin because they have the most international cuisine. But in general, if you're not a huge fan of Colombian food, no matter where you go, it doesn't really get better. So what kind of nature spots do you like? You like more mountains like it is here in Manizales? Do you like more of the beach like it is in Cartagena and Santa Marta? In Medellin, nature's still nice, the parks are still really nice, and it's in the middle of the valley. And they suffer from a lot of pollution, but it's still extremely beautiful. Bogota's a really big city, but it's smack like in the middle of mountains, so anywhere you look, it's still really beautiful. Colombia in general just has a huge appreciation for nature, so no matter where you go, it's gonna be nice. And also, you wanna think about how developed the city is. In Colombia, most of the country are still in pueblos. Those places are really nice if you're looking for some peace and you want like a more chill lifestyle. Most of the big cities are more developed than you would think. Even of the smaller big cities, Armenia, Pereira, I don't think you should have trouble finding places that are extremely developed. But if you're looking for that pueblo lifestyle, I highly recommend that too, because that's a really cool experience as well. If you want specific recommendations about life here, shoot me an email or DM on Instagram. We can set up a private consultation. Here are some other videos that you can watch if you're looking to move here in Colombia. Thank you guys so much, and I'll catch you later. Peace out.
I keep it thorough. I got 5 chicks in New York, that means one in